Imagine a single, perfect pearl. It sits on dark velvet, glowing with a soft, internal light. It feels smooth and cool in your hand, a small sphere of serene beauty. It speaks of luxury, of timeless elegance. But the truth is, this pearl wasn't born in serenity. It was born in darkness and desperation. Its story is written not in light, but in pressure, pain, and the salt that stings your eyes and skin. To understand this gem, you have to understand the crushing reality of the life that found it. Welcome to the Persian Gulf, sometime in the long, hot summer. The sun isn't up yet, but the night air is thick and oppressive, clinging to you like a wet blanket. In a small coastal village, you stir from a fitful sleep. Your home is simple, and your breakfast is even simpler: a handful of dates and a small cup of bitter coffee. You eat alongside the other men, the quiet camaraderie a thin shield against the day ahead. This might be your last warm meal on land for up to 4 months. According to historians, this departure was a major event, a ceremony called the Hirat, where your entire community would gather at the shore to say goodbye. It's a scene of sorrowful farewells, for everyone knows that some of you will not return from the sea. Now, you're on the crowded deck of a wooden dhow, the boat that will be your home and your prison. The sea air is already warm and smells of salt, tar, and sweat. It's time to prepare your tools, though calling them tools feels generous. They are instruments of survival, each designed for brutal efficiency, not your comfort. First, you pick up the nose clip. In Arabic, it's the al-fitam. It's made from polished tortoiseshell or animal bone. You clamp it onto your nose, and the force is immediate and painful. It pinches your nostrils shut so tightly it feels like it might break the cartilage. Don't worry, this isn't for comfort, it's to keep water from rushing into your sinuses, and to help your body manage the immense pressure changes deep below. Next is the diving stone, the al-hassa. It's a heavy piece of rock or lead, weighing around 10 kilograms, with a rope tied to it. You loop the other end of the rope around your foot. You won't be wasting precious energy or oxygen swimming down to the seabed. Instead, this stone will plummet you into the depths. It's a clumsy, heavy weight, a constant reminder of the vertical world you're about to enter. The goal is speed, getting you to the bottom as fast as humanly possible, because your time there is terrifyingly short. Through it all, you have to trust the equipment to do its job, even if it feels like it's working against you. Around your neck, you hang the al-dain, your collection basket. It's not a sturdy box, but a simple woven bag made of rope. The rough texture already chafes your skin, a sensation you'll have to ignore for the next 12 hours. This is where you will frantically stuff any oyster shells you can find. Finally, there's the most important piece of equipment: the lifeline. Known as the yada, this long rope is tied securely around your waist. The other end is held by a man on the dhow called the saib, the puller. He is your only connection to the air, to the world of the living. Your life rests entirely on his attention and strength. He has to feel your signal and pull you up before your lungs give out. Your survival depends completely on this simple rope and the man holding it. You stand at the edge of the dhow, the morning sun just beginning to peek over the horizon. You take a few deep, deliberate breaths, trying to saturate your blood with as much oxygen as you can. Then, you clamp the fetum on your nose, grab the rope for your weight stone, and step off the edge. You don't glide into the water, you plummet. The al-hassa pulls you down with shocking speed. The warm surface water instantly gives way to a cooler, darker world. The pressure builds immediately, a painful squeezing in your ears and sinuses. You're descending into the quiet, murky depths of the sea. When your feet touch the bottom, you slip the weight stone off and the real work begins. The clock is now ticking. You have, at most, 60 to 90 seconds. In the dim light of the seabed, you frantically scan the rocks. Your lungs are already beginning to burn. The only sounds are the muffled scrape of your small knife against rock and the frantic thumping of your own heart. You pry loose any oyster you can see, stuffing them into the al-dain basket hanging from your neck. Every second feels like an eternity, yet the time you have is gone in a flash. Your body is screaming for air, a primal panic setting in. With your vision starting to blur at the edges, you find your lifeline, the yada, and give it a single, desperate tug. This is the signal. Above, the saib feels the pull and begins hauling you back toward the light. You are pulled upwards, limp and desperate, until your head breaks the surface. You rip the nose clip off and take a ragged, gasping breath. The air, tasting of salt and relief, fills your aching lungs. For a few precious minutes, you cling to the side of the boat, your body trembling with exhaustion. But there is no real rest. The sun is climbing higher now, its heat becoming blistering. Your skin, wet with salt water, begins to sting under its direct glare. But here's the thing: that harrowing ordeal was just one dive. And you will do it again, and again, and again. The cycle is relentless. Some historians note that divers would perform this cycle up to 50 times a day. Other accounts suggest that during the peak of the season, a diver might endure a staggering 200 descents from sunrise to sunset. Imagine the toll on your body. The constant pressure changes, the oxygen deprivation, the exposure to the elements. Somehow, they managed. Their bodies slowly break down under the strain. Finally, as the sun dips low, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the day's diving is done. You and the rest of the crew gather on the deck, surrounded by small mountains of oyster shells. Now comes the moment of truth. One by one, you pry open the hundreds of shells you risked your life to collect. The deck becomes slick with seawater and oyster flesh. The air fills with the sharp, fishy smell of the open mollusks. You shuck one after another, your eyes scanning for the telltale glimmer. But most of the time, there's nothing. In the end, after a full day of brutal, life-threatening labor, your entire haul might yield absolutely zero reward. All that pain, all that risk, for a pile of empty shells. So the next time you see a perfect, glistening pearl, remember the hundreds of dives, the burning lungs, and the countless empty shells that paved its way into the light. And so, having witnessed the crushing reality of a single day in the diver's life, we'll pause our expedition on the surface for just a moment. If you've come up from that first descent with us, you are a true fellow traveler. The path ahead, however, leads into darker waters. Soon, we will confront the silent executioners, the strange sickness known as taravana that could boil the blood and break the mind, and the venomous things that shared the seabed. We'll untangle the cruel math of a debt system that trapped families for generations, and journey across the globe to see how this same hunt for a jewel created revered female divers in Japan and fueled the horrors of blackbirding in Australia. It is a grim history, but one I trust we can observe from a suitably safe distance. If you wish to continue this journey into the depths, consider leaving a like on this dispatch, and subscribe to the channel to ensure your place is held on the boat for the next leg of our trek. For now, breathe deep. The next chapter awaits. In the early 20th century, you've somehow managed to survive your first few plunges as a pearl diver. You've learned to hold your breath, to fight the burning in your lungs, and to kick your way back to the life-giving air. As you cling to the side of the boat, the hot sun beating down on your shoulders, you might feel a flicker of success. But don't worry, that feeling won't last. The truth is, survival here isn't about the dramatic moments. The real executioners are the ones you can't see, the ones that are already working their way into your blood and bones. Imagine for a moment you're back on the seafloor, maybe 20 meters down. The weight of the water is a physical presence, pressing in on your entire body. Down here, the compressed air in your lungs does something strange. According to scientific research, the inert nitrogen in that air dissolves into your bloodstream. As a diver, your body becomes a sponge for it. The brief rest you get at the surface, maybe only a few minutes, isn't nearly enough time for your body to safely exhale it all. So you dive again, and your tissues soak up even more. Polynesian divers had a name for what happens next: taravana, which translates roughly to sea madness. For you, it begins subtly. Back on the boat after a long series of dives, you notice a strange tingling in your fingers and toes. You try to stand, but a wave of dizziness makes the whole world tilt sideways. Your head begins to throb with a dull, persistent ache. This isn't just exhaustion, this is your own body chemistry staging a quiet rebellion. The nitrogen that your blood absorbed under pressure is now, in the lower pressure of the surface, turning into microscopic bubbles. What they found, through harrowing experience, was that these bubbles were devastating. As they travel through your bloodstream, they can lodge anywhere, most critically in your brain and spinal cord. Systematic reviews of cases show a horrifying collection of symptoms. One moment, your vision might blur, or you might see flashing lights. The next, you could find your arm or leg going completely numb, refusing to obey your commands. For some, this led to permanent paralysis. For others, it was debilitating vertigo and seizures. You are now intimately familiar with decompression sickness, or as it's more commonly known, the bends, a silent executioner that claimed countless divers. Now, even before the nitrogen begins its sinister work, there's a more immediate pain. Welcome to the world of barotrauma. With every single descent, the immense water pressure tries to crush the air spaces in your head. Imagine a sharp, stabbing pain deep inside your ears, as if a needle is being pushed through them. You feel it in your sinuses, a profound and agonizing pressure behind your eyes and cheekbones. It's a constant companion on every trip to the bottom, a toll you have to pay just to do your job. There's no escaping this fundamental law of physics. To combat this, you might try the old tricks. In the moments before a dive, you take some greased cotton or wax and plug your ears. You hope this flimsy barrier will somehow protect you from the crushing force of the ocean. It feels greasy and uncomfortable, and you know it's a futile gesture. Sure enough, as you descend, the pressure builds, and then you feel it. Not a gradual pain, but a sudden, sharp pop in one ear, followed by a rush of cold water. Congratulations, you've just ruptured an eardrum. You are now more disoriented. Your hearing is permanently damaged, and you still have an oyster to find. But here's the thing, it wasn't just your own body that was trying to kill you. You were never truly alone in that murky, silent world. As you scan the seafloor, your vision limited to just a few feet, you are constantly aware that you are a visitor in a hostile land. The water muffles all sound, creating a tense silence broken only by the thumping of your own heart. Every dark shape in your peripheral vision, every flicker of movement, sends a jolt of cold adrenaline through you. It's a low-level, gnawing fear that is part of the very air you don't have. This part of the Gulf is teeming with life, and not all of it is friendly. Sharks, drawn by the activity or simple curiosity, were a constant presence. A flash of a barracuda's teeth might be the last thing you see. But the big predators weren't the only concern. The seafloor is home to venomous creatures you might never spot until it's too late. You learn to be careful where you put your hands, knowing that a venomous sea snake or a perfectly camouflaged stonefish could be hiding under any rock. One wrong move, one moment of carelessness means an agonizing death far from any help. Somehow, through it all, you survive the day's work. Now imagine yourself back on the boat, trying to rest. The slow decay has already begun. Your skin, submerged in hypersaline water for hours on end, is a wreck. It's perpetually damp, raw, and chafed. Without access to fresh water for rinsing, the salt dries into a crust that cracks and itches relentlessly. Chronic rashes and skin diseases are simply a fact of life. You never feel clean, you never feel comfortable. Your own skin becomes a source of constant low-grade misery. The damage doesn't stop there. Think about your eyes. You don't have the luxury of modern goggles. You spend your days underwater with your eyes open to the stinging salt water and your time at the surface squinting against the blinding, relentless glare of the sun. The combination is brutal. Your eyes are always red, always sore. Over the years, this constant strain takes its toll. Your vision begins to soften at the edges, the world slowly becoming a permanent blur. Many older divers simply went blind, their window to the world clouded over by their profession. In the quiet of the night, in the cramped sleeping quarters, you feel the damage deep inside your chest. You lie down, but you can't escape a persistent, rattling cough. Years of repeated, extreme breath-holding and rapid ascents have scarred your lung tissue. Taking a deep, satisfying breath is a luxury you can no longer afford. Even here, on the relative safety of the boat, the sea is still with you. It's a part of you now, working to break you down from the inside out. Your reward for a life of death-defying work is a body that can no longer perform the simple act of breathing without a struggle. In the end, this was the life of a pearl diver. It was a slow, piece-by-piece surrender of your body. The psychological toll of living with constant pain, ever-present fear, and the certain knowledge that your work was slowly destroying you is truly immeasurable. Somehow, they managed, driven by necessity and a resilience that is difficult for us to comprehend today. So next time you see an antique pearl necklace, you can appreciate not just its beauty but the profound human cost that was paid for every single, imperfect sphere. Congratulations, you've just survived the long, brutal pearling season. You've somehow made it past the sharks, the stinging jellyfish, and the crushing pressure of the deep. You're back on the shores of the Persian Gulf, the solid ground beneath your feet a welcome change from the rocking dhow. The air is thick with the smell of salt and drying fish, a familiar scent that should mean home and safety. You've made it. But as you walk through your village, you realize the greatest danger wasn't in the water. The real trap was waiting for you here on land, and it was a system designed to ensure you never, ever escaped. Welcome to the unseen world of pearl diver economics. Here in the early 20th century, you are not an employee who earns a wage. You are part of a complex system of debt bondage, known in the Gulf as salafiyya. It's a quiet, insidious system that operates not with iron chains, but with ink and ledgers. Before the season even began, you approached the captain of your boat, the nakuda, for an advance. You needed money to leave for your family, to ensure they had something to eat while you were gone for 4 long months. He gave it to you, a small bag of coins that felt heavy with both hope and obligation. This advance, the salafiyya, was your first link in a chain you could not yet see. Let's go back to that moment. Imagine yourself in your small, sparse home. The walls are made of mud and palm fronds, and the air inside is still and warm. Your family is gathered around, their faces etched with the worry of your impending departure. You need to provide for them. So you go to the nakuda. He sits in the shade, the scent of strong coffee hanging in the air around him. He listens to your request, his face unreadable. He agrees to the loan, and for a moment, you feel a wave of relief. This money will buy dates, rice, and perhaps a bit of cloth. It's a lifeline. But the truth is, you've just taken a loan against a future you can't predict, based on a profit you have no control over. Now, months later, you're back on that same shore. The season is done, and it's time for the accounting. You and the other divers gather near the nakuda's tent, the rough fabric flapping softly in the dry breeze. He has the ledger, a worn book that holds your fate. You listen as he begins to list the deductions. The cost of the food you ate on the boat, the water, a precious commodity, is carefully tallied. Your share of the cost for a torn sail, a frayed rope, a lost anchor. The list goes on and on. You feel a cold knot forming in your stomach. The numbers are a confusing blur, a language designed to confound you. This is the impossible math of your life as a diver. The accounting is rarely, if ever, transparent. The interest rates charged on your initial salafiyya loan are incredibly high. The captain, who keeps the books, has every incentive to inflate costs and manipulate the numbers. A single poor season, where the pearl harvest is thin, could be devastating. Even a good haul might not be enough. Evidence from historical records and personal accounts shows that captains would often work together with merchants to control the system. They knew that a diver free of debt was a diver who might not return next season. And so, the ledger becomes your prison. The final blow comes after the pearls are sold. The nakuda takes the season's catch to the pearl merchants in the market. You are not there for the sale. You have no say in the price. You simply have to wait. When he returns, the fate of your entire crew rests on the number he announces. In the dusty, sun-baked square, he tells you the merchants offered a low price this year. Your heart, which beat so bravely in the deep, now sinks. The beautiful, iridescent gems you risked your life for, the ones you held in your hand with a flicker of pride, are deemed to be worth very little. All your pain, all your fear, all your effort, is reduced to a disappointing figure on a page. Now, the final calculation is made. The nakuda subtracts the mountain of expenses and your initial loan from your tiny share of the profits. The truth becomes brutally clear. You haven't earned anything. In fact, you haven't even broken even. You have ended the 4-month season with a deficit. You owe the captain more money than you started with. The relief of surviving the sea is replaced by the cold, crushing weight of failure. You have to sign on for the next season, not out of choice, but simply to start working off this new, heavier debt. Don't worry, the system is working exactly as planned. This burden is not yours alone. In this world, debt is a generational curse. As you walk home, your empty hands shoved deep in your pockets, you see your son playing near your doorway. He runs to you, his face full of excitement. He sees you as a hero returning from the sea. But you know the truth. You look at him and see the future. Historical accounts are clear on this point upon a diver's death or retirement. His sons were socially and legally obligated to take his place. They inherited not just his boat, but the crushing weight of his financial obligations. While you might survive a shark attack, you can almost never survive your debt. The physical risks were a gamble, the economic servitude was a certainty. Now, here is the thing that connects your life in the past directly to our world today. This system of labor control, the salafiyya, is widely considered by historians to be the direct ancestor of a modern system used in many Gulf countries, the kafala, or sponsorship system. Think about the relationship you have with the nakuda. You are bound to him. Your ability to work, to earn, to exist in this industry is tied to that one man and the debt you owe him. He has all the power. The modern kafala system mirrors this dynamic. It binds a foreign migrant worker's legal status to a single employer, their sponsor or kafil. This creates a profound power imbalance, leaving the worker vulnerable to exploitation with little recourse. Just as your legal and economic life was tied to your captain, so too is the modern worker's life tied to their kafil. So next time you hear about labor issues in the Gulf, you can remember the pearl divers. You can see the faint, chilling echo of your life as a diver, trapped by the unseen chains of a ledger, a system where the debt you owe is the only thing that truly lasts. Imagine the search for a single, perfect pearl. The physical act of diving for it was universally brutal. The crushing pressure, the burning lungs, the constant threat of the deep. But the suffering wasn't monolithic. It wore a different face in every culture. The way your life was controlled, the reason you were in the water, and your chances of survival were all shaped by the systems of power back on land. The truth was, the human cost of a pearl was calculated very differently around the world. Let's return for a moment to the Persian Gulf. In the early 20th century, you are a diver, a gawaz, on a crowded dhow. The air is thick with the smell of salt, fish, and sweat. You are part of an exclusively male world, a floating society built on a rigid hierarchy. Your position is at the very bottom. You bear all the physical risk for a pittance, trapped in a system of debt that your father likely passed down to you. Your life is not your own, it belongs to the captain, the merchant, and a ledger of debts you can never hope to repay. Now, imagine a world away, across the vastness of Asia. Welcome to Japan. Here, the tradition of diving belongs almost entirely to women. You are an ama, a sea woman. In your tight-knit coastal village, your role is not one of servitude, but of respect. This is an ancient practice, rooted in the practical need to forage for food like abalone and seaweed. Your connection to the ocean is deep, almost spiritual, and it grants you a level of economic and social independence unthinkable for your counterpart in the Gulf. You stand on the shore with your fellow divers. The water is frigid, a sharp shock to your system. Some ama dive wearing only a loincloth, their skin hardened by years of exposure. The cold seeps into your bones, a familiar but unwelcome companion. There is a sense of camaraderie here. You are surrounded by mothers, daughters, and sisters. They adjust your simple gear and share a quiet word of encouragement. Your community is your safety net, a stark contrast to the competitive, debt-fueled desperation on a Persian dhow. Through it all, you know your work is vital for your family's survival. It is time. You take a series of deep, calming breaths before you slip into the water. As you dive, you release a long, slow whistle. It's a unique breathing technique called the isabu. To an outsider, it sounds like a mournful sigh echoing across the waves. For you, it's a tool, a way to control your descent and conserve precious oxygen. The water grows darker and colder as you go down. The sound of the world above fades, replaced by the thumping of your own heart. You don't have a weighted rope, your own strength and skill propel you toward the seabed. Somehow, they managed. Down in the quiet depths, your hands search the rocks for your prize. You are not just looking for pearls, you are gathering food that will be sold at the market. This gives you direct control over your earnings. Back on land, you are a key economic provider. This status affords you a voice in your household and your community. It's a semi-matriarchal system born from the sea. Don't worry, the dangers are just as real as anywhere else. You face the same immense physical risks of free diving. But here, you are not a slave to debt. You are a respected professional, a master of a dangerous and ancient craft. But here's the thing about global demand. It twists local traditions and introduces new, terrifying forms of exploitation. Let's travel south to the Philippines, the pearl of the Orient Seas. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, your life as a diver takes another turn. The Spanish, and later the Americans, are here. And they've brought technology, or at least a crude and deadly version of it. You're no longer just a free diver, you might be part of a crew using a system called paaling. Let's transport ourselves to a small boat in the Sulu archipelago. On the deck, a rusty, sputtering engine powers a crude air compressor. It belts out a constant, deafening chug that vibrates through the wooden hull. This is your lifeline. A single, long rubber hose snakes down from the compressor into the water below. Several divers, including you, will share this hose. You put on a heavy, ill-fitting helmet, maybe scavenged from an old copper pot. The air pumped down to you is unfiltered, tasting of oil and engine exhaust. You descend into the warm, clear water, but there is no peace here. You can hear the groaning engine from the surface. You feel the unsteady pulse of air feeding into your helmet. Your life depends entirely on that engine continuing to run and on the person managing the hose. If the hose gets tangled on coral or, worse, is severed, you have minutes, if not seconds, to live. This system allowed for deeper and longer dives, but it came at a horrific cost. Entire communities of divers were decimated by the bends. The truth was, no one understood decompression sickness. Divers would surface too quickly, and the nitrogen bubbles in their blood would expand, causing excruciating pain, paralysis, and often a slow, agonizing death. The practice created an epidemic of crippled men in coastal villages. It was a brutal form of colonial exploitation, part of a long history of conflict where the local Moro peoples fiercely resisted foreign powers while their waters were plundered for the world's insatiable appetite for pearls. Now, we journey to our final destination, Australia. Here, the system is not debt or dangerous technology, but something far more direct. It's the late 19th century, and you are an indigenous Australian living along the northern coast. The pearling industry is booming, built on a practice known as blackbirding. It is, in simple terms, slavery. Pearling luggers arrive at your shore. You might be tricked with false promises, coerced, or simply kidnapped and forced onto the boats. You watch your home, your entire world, disappear over the horizon. Life on the pearling boat is hell. You are a skin diver, given the most dangerous job with no equipment. You are subject to constant violence and abuse from the white pearlers. The air is foul, the quarters are cramped, and the food is meager. The mortality rate is appalling. You see your friends and family members die from drowning, from the bends, from malnutrition, or from diseases brought by the Europeans. You are seen as entirely disposable, a tool to be used and broken. Your knowledge of the sea, once a source of life for your people, is now being used to send you to an early grave. In a final, uniquely cruel twist, evidence suggests the pearlers often preferred to force pregnant Aboriginal women to dive. They operated under the monstrous and exploitative belief that pregnant women possessed superior lung capacity and could work harder. Imagine the terror of that reality. You are not just a laborer, your very body and the life inside you are being weaponized for profit. From the dead of the Gulf to the independence of Japan, the crude mechanics of the Philippines, and the outright slavery of Australia, the quest for a tiny gem revealed the very best, and the absolute worst, of human ingenuity and cruelty. As a pearl diver in the 19th century, your life wasn't just shaped by the sea. It was a small piece in a much larger, more complicated game. Consider your individual struggle as just one thread in a vast tapestry. This tapestry was being woven by empires, fueled by money, and held together by political power. The truth was, every time you descended into the deep, you were a pawn in a global contest you could neither see nor comprehend. The demand for the tiny, lustrous sphere you sought was a force that crossed oceans, connecting your simple boat to the halls of power in London. Now, imagine you're in the Persian Gulf around the year 1880. You see the clean white sails of a British naval cruiser on the horizon. It cuts through the water with an unnerving silence, a symbol of order. The air around your dhow smells of tar, drying fish, and the sweat of your fellow divers. Onshore, British officials speak of bringing stability and ending the slave trade. They call it securing the seas. But for you, their presence feels different. It feels like a lock clicking shut on a cage that was already built. The British didn't invent the system of debt and exploitation you live under. They just made it more efficient and inescapable. The ruling sheiks of your coastal town are the local face of this power. Thanks to British treaties, their authority is now absolute. In your father's time, perhaps there was some flexibility, some room to negotiate or escape. Now, the sheik's word is law because it is backed by British cannons. You see him pass in the market, his robes immaculate, untouched by the grit and sand that coats your own skin. His wealth, built on the pearls you risk your life for, is secure. The British presence guarantees that the pearling laws, the very laws that keep you in perpetual debt to your captain, will be strictly enforced. Here's the thing. This system runs on a deep and staggering hypocrisy. Publicly, the British Empire positions itself as a moral crusader, dedicated to stamping out slavery across its vast domain. You might hear sailors talk of freeing enslaved people in other parts of the world. Yet, here in the Gulf, the officials on the ground knew the truth. They understood perfectly well that this lucrative pearl trade, which benefited so many wealthy Europeans, depended entirely on your coerced labor. The line between your debt bondage and outright slavery is so thin it's practically invisible. For you, and for many others who were literally enslaved, the pearling grounds were a prison without walls. Imagine this scene. A desperate man, an enslaved diver from another boat, manages to escape during the night. Under the pale moonlight, he swims towards the imposing silhouette of that same British naval cruiser you saw earlier. He is seeking asylum, a chance at freedom promised by the Empire's grand pronouncements. You watch from a distance, your heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. But as he reaches the ship's ladder, he is turned away. The British officers, fearing the economic and political chaos of actually freeing the workforce, have developed quiet policies. Their orders are to deny asylum, to send escapees back. Profit, they've decided, is more important than principle. The man is sent back to his master, and your last flicker of hope for outside help is extinguished by the cold reality of imperial economics. Now, let's shift your perspective across the globe. Welcome to Broome, on the coast of Western Australia, in the early 1900s. The heat is suffocating, a damp blanket that clings to your skin. The air smells of mangrove mud and the harsh, metallic scent of the pearling luggers. You are an Aboriginal diver, forced into this life. The colonial authorities who govern this land have created a strange and brutal paradox. They champion a white Australia policy, designed to keep non-white immigrants out. Yet, you are standing right here, a vital part of the colony's most profitable industry. The government has granted the pearling industry a special exemption. The reason is simple and bleak. White Australians were unwilling to perform the dangerous, back-breaking work that you do every single day. This exemption wasn't an act of inclusion, it was a tacit admission of your disposability. It created a clear racial hierarchy that you feel in every interaction. It's in the way the white ship owners and government agents look at you. It's in the meager rations you're given, a stark contrast to the food you see in the town's shops. For the authorities, this hierarchy justifies the brutal treatment you and other indigenous divers endure. It's a convenient logic that allows them to profit from your forced labor while maintaining a public facade of racial purity. Your very existence here is a tool for their enrichment. In both the Gulf and Australia, the system is controlled by a small elite class of people you rarely see. These are the wealthy pearl merchants and financiers. In the coastal town, you might catch a glimpse of one. He isn't a sheikh or a colonial officer, but his power is just as real. He might be a European in a crisp linen suit or a wealthy local who has mastered the trade. He doesn't sail on the boats or get his hands dirty. He simply waits. He waits for your captain to return, his pouch heavy with your findings. You can feel the weight of his influence in the dusty streets. He owns the best house, his family wears the finest clothes, and he controls the politics of the entire town. These merchants, often operating with the full protection of colonial powers, established trading relationships that were designed to be dependent. They set the prices. They controlled the market. All the incredible wealth that you pulled from the seabed was systematically funneled away from you, away from your community, and towards the grand cities of Europe. You are the first and most essential link in a chain of commerce, but you receive the least benefit. The texture of your reality is coarse rope and salty water. The texture of his is polished wood and smooth silk. This vast difference in sensation is the direct result of the economic structure he commands. And so, for you, the individual diver, resistance feels impossible. What could you possibly do? The entire structure is designed to keep you powerless. The captain holds your debt. The local sheikh or colonial administrator enforces the law that recognizes that debt. The British Navy patrols the waters, ensuring no one disrupts this profitable order. And far away, the wealthy merchant counts his profits, insulated from the harshness of your world. To organize against the captain is to defy the sheikh. To defy the sheikh is to challenge the British Empire itself. Trapped in this overwhelming web of power, you do the only thing you can. You take a deep breath, hold it, and dive back into the silent, waiting blue. For centuries, your life as a pearl diver has been governed by ancient, unchanging rhythms. In the early 20th century, you feel the familiar ache in your bones and the sting of salt in your eyes. The work is brutal, the rewards are scarce, but the system is all you have ever known. You bob on the warm surface of the Persian Gulf, the wooden hull of the dhow creaking a familiar song beneath you. You have no way of knowing that, thousands of miles away, two events are quietly unfolding that will bring this entire world crashing down. Your way of life is about to become a memory. Imagine for a moment it's the turn of the century in the coastal waters of Japan. A man named Kokichi Mikimoto is patiently working, not with a diver's knife, but with the delicate tools of a surgeon. You, of course, have never heard his name. You cannot imagine his clean, quiet workshop, a world away from the grit and noise of your purling dhow. While you risk your life plunging into the dark, he is perfecting a technique to create a flawless pearl on demand. According to historical records, this wasn't just a fluke, it was the industrialization of a miracle, and it would prove fatal to your profession. The secret was deceptively simple. Imagine holding one of the small, misshapen pearls you might find after 100 dives. It feels gritty and imperfect. Now, consider Mikimoto's creation. By carefully implanting a tiny, perfectly round bead into an oyster, he could coax the creature into coating it with layer upon layer of lustrous nacre. The result was a cultured pearl, perfectly spherical and visually identical to the rarest natural gems. You might spend a lifetime searching for such a treasure, he could soon be producing them by the thousands. Now, you return from a long, exhausting season at sea. The skin on your back is cracked by the sun, and the familiar ringing in your ears is louder than ever. You present your meager findings to the captain, expecting the usual unfair accounting. But this time is different. The price he offers is so low it feels like an insult. The air grows thick with a new kind of despair. He explains that the global markets are being flooded with these new, cheaper pearls from Japan. Your rare, hard-won gem is suddenly competing with a perfectly manufactured product that costs a fraction of the price. This technological shockwave was compounded by something happening in the faraway lands of America and Europe. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, the Great Depression settled over the world like a cold, damp fog. The wealthy patrons who once clamored for luxury goods suddenly had no money to spare. You can feel this distant economic chill even here, in the sweltering heat of the Gulf. The demand for your natural pearls, the very foundation of your livelihood, simply evaporates. Your suffering has always been immense, but for the first time, it feels entirely pointless. The truth was, the ancient math of your existence had been broken. For generations, your people endured the incredible risks because of the small, shimmering chance of a reward that could change a life. Now, you find that all the risks remain. The sharks are still there. The crushing pressure of the deep still threatens to burst your lungs. But the reward is gone. The pearl that once held the promise of paying off a tiny fraction of your debt is now nearly worthless. Somehow, through it all, you have to keep diving, sinking deeper into a system that is now, officially, obsolete. Just as the world of the natural pearl collapsed, plunging you and your coastal community into profound poverty, a new discovery flowed in to fill the vacuum. Imagine you are standing on the shore of Bahrain in 1932. The purling dhows that once crowded the harbor now rot in the sun. The familiar smell of salt and fish is being replaced by something else, a strange, acrid scent drifting on the breeze. You hear a new sound, not the cry of gulls, but the rhythmic thrum of heavy machinery. They have found black gold under the sand. You are now faced with a choice that your ancestors could never have imagined. You can continue to risk your life in the sea, diving for a pittance to pay a debt that will never end. Or, you can take a job in the oil fields. The work is hard, certainly, but it's on solid ground. You see your fellow divers trading their ropes and knives for tools and uniforms. The pay is steady, and at the end of the day, you can breathe air that isn't heavy with the pressure of the deep. It is an easy decision for many. The entire economy of the Gulf begins to transform, pivoting from being based on the sea to being based on the subsoil. Your skills, honed over a lifetime of reading the currents and holding your breath, are suddenly worthless. Congratulations, you are now officially obsolete. Your trade doesn't end in a dramatic battle, but with a quiet, steady exodus to the oil fields, leaving you behind as a relic of a bygone era. The ocean that was once your entire world becomes a backdrop. Let's transport you to today. You are a visitor at a vibrant heritage festival celebrating your nation's purling past. Welcome to the sanitized version of your life. The air smells not of bilge water and sickness, but of sweet incense and roasting coffee. You see handsome actors dressed in clean, white garments, reenacting a romanticized version of your dives for smiling tourists. They hold their breath for a few seconds in a clear pool, and the crowd applauds their bravery. You watch these displays and see no mention of the crippling debt that bound you to the captain. They don't show the blurred vision from years of underwater work, the scurvy that made your teeth loose, or the constant terror of what lurked in the deep. The truth was, your profound suffering has been carefully curated into a positive, foundational myth for a modern nation. It is a complex and understandable process, but it obscures the dark reality at the heart of your profession. So in the end, why wouldn't you survive? It was never just one single, dramatic event. It was the slow, grinding pressure of 1,000 different things. It was the physical danger from sharks, the chronic diseases that wasted your body from within, and the economic slavery that ensured you were never free. Survival wasn't about dodging a single fatal blow, but about enduring a daily barrage that shattered the body and spirit. And if, by some miracle, you withstood all of that, technology and geology conspired to make your entire existence redundant. A final, powerful tribute must be paid to the forgotten divers whose story this truly is. You come to realize that survival wasn't just about drawing one more ragged breath. The real prize was never the pearl. It was freedom, a luxury that your life of suffering could never afford. And with that, we gently close the final chapter on these forgotten depths. The last dive has been made, and the crushing weight of history is lifted, leaving only the soft echo of waves that once carried so much suffering. We have felt the desperate tug of the Yada and witnessed how entire civilizations could be built on the broken bodies of those who dove deepest. As you lay in the stillness, perhaps you can still sense that moment of sacred calm, the brief surface interval when lungs could fill with precious air. Thank you for descending into these dark waters with me, wherever you may be. To know we've shared this quiet exploration of the abyss is a truly peaceful feeling. The ritual is over, and the memory of the pearl divers now rests with you. A like serves as your final tribute to the drowned, a gesture of respect for the souls who gave everything for a handful of lustrous shells. To subscribe is to accept your role as a guardian of these lost voices, ensuring you are summoned by the keepers of maritime memory when the next tale rises from the depths. Don't let this be a fleeting dream, make yourself a permanent guardian of their legacy. And now, let the sound of my voice fade like the distant call of seabirds. Your watch as keeper is done for the night. The debts have been forgiven, the chains of bondage broken. There is nothing left to dive for, nothing left to salvage. Just the gentle pull of sleep and the knowledge that these forgotten souls finally have someone to remember them. Let the peace they never found in life settle over you now, and drift into deep and tranquil rest. The drowned will keep their secrets until we return. Good night.